everybody, it's Paige Evans and I have a new process video to share with you today. This was made for the May Mood Board Girls Instagram hop. It's their 1-year anniversary, so be sure to join along. There's lots of giveaways. And so I started with a butterfly punch from EK Success. There are 4 different shaped butterflies on a single punch, and I went through my basket of paper scraps and I punched butterflies to match the colors on the mood board. I also went into my regular paper stash and punched even more butterflies. So I punched pinks, yellows, aquas, and blues. I didn't end up using the dark blue butterflies, but the dark blue is part of the mood board. But I just wanted to go with a more pastel, softer look. So then I layered all the butterflies. Since there's 4 different shaped butterflies, I layered all 4 kinds of butterflies together, and then I got smart and did it assembly line style. So I divided the butterflies into like piles of shapes and then layered the largest butterfly first, added the 2 middle-sized butterflies, and then the smallest butterfly on top, mixing and matching the colors and patterns so they're all different. And then I used my sewing machine to stitch down the middle of each butterfly to connect them together. And I would recommend only stitching one line straight down. I actually stitched 3 times. I went down, back up, and down again. You can see me here. I zoomed in so you could get a closer look. By doing it 3 times, a lot of my butterflies tore, but I think if you only did it once, everything would be dandy. So that's my tip for you if you're going to machine stitch through your butterflies. The next step is to bend up the wings, and a faster way to do this is to just bend the butterflies completely in half and then open them again, and that also creates the dimensional butterflies and the layered butterflies that I'm so obsessed with making lately. So then I thought about doing some mixed media, and I was trying to decide between these 2 colors of cardstock, and I really couldn't decide. I loved them both, so I thought, well, why not use them both? So I trimmed this grayish blue textured cardstock in half to 6 inches, and I adhered it onto the right side of this smooth aqua cardstock. And then I'm going to do some mixed media. So I brought in white acrylic paint and a thinner paintbrush, and I'm painting stripes across the front. So thinner at the top, thicker or wider in the middle, and then thinner again at the bottom. And I liked the imperfect look, but it was a little too imperfect. The stripes on the right side were longer than the stripes on the left side. But moving on, I then added a layer of modeling paste using a Kaisercraft 6-inch square flower stencil. And I also added more of this modeling paste on the edges where the stripes were longer. I let it dry in between layers so that it wouldn't smush the layers that were still drying. And then I layered the butterflies on top. And looking at this, it looks pretty, but it seemed a little too busy. And so I started fresh on a new piece of the same colored grayish blue textured cardstock, and I thought about putting the butterflies in this swoosh formation. However, once again, I just wasn't feeling it. And so this next idea was to trace round objects to make concentric circles. So I went around the house and found all the round things I could find, traced them with a pencil, and I liked the direction this was going, but I wanted the circles to be more evenly spaced. And so in Silhouette Studio, I created a document with concentric circles, used a sketch pen to draw out the circles onto the same cardstock background, and continued on my merry way, placing the butterflies all in the same direction around the circles, trying to place them in like a rainbow fashion so there's not 2 of the same color next to each other or 2 of the same pattern next to each other, but it's a good even mix all around. And I'm liking how this is going, so I'm going to keep going. I wanted to do hand stitching around the circles, and so I used a paper piercer to poke a hole about every 1/4 inch or so. And my original idea was to stitch right on through the butterflies, but again, that was making them tear, and I also it made it look like they were blending into the background, and I wanted them to pop off and stand out from the background. And so you'll see me show how I'm hand stitching right on through the butterfly, but then I will go back and fix it. So I'm doing a basic back stitch using white DMC embroidery floss, and again stitching right on through the butterflies this time, but then I took all of the butterflies off and continued hand stitching around all of the circles. And this took me, I thought I was going to finish it in one day, but I worked on this layout over the period of 3 days. I just had lots of other things going on, and I was happy to get it finished when I did. So when I took off the butterflies from the background, I drew a star so I could remember where they went because I liked the placement. And now I'm going back and removing the hand stitching that went through the butterflies because again, I wanted the butterflies to stand out from the background and not blend in. So I'm using a pair of fine-tipped scissors to remove the thread carefully and then peeling it out. And then I finished hand stitching. I'm using my fingernails to spread out the threads so they're a little bit wider and more noticeable. That's wider, not whiter. And now I am actually going to add more mixed media, which is funny because I was trying to avoid it in the first place, but I wanted to create more interest in the background. So while the butterflies were still off of the layout, I splashed white acrylic paint over, well, I tried to splash it over the stars, but it just kind of got everywhere, and that's okay, I went with it. After the white acrylic paint dried, I mixed colors to match the butterflies, so light blue. I also mixed it in with some white acrylic paint to make it more opaque, so kind of like a gouache. So I splashed blue over the white and then adding yellow, also trying to stay mostly over the stitched lines, but it's okay if some splashes in between, it still looks okay. And the last layer will be light pink. So again, I mixed white acrylic paint with the pink watercolor, and I'm tapping my paintbrush to splash it onto the background. I used a hair dryer to speed up the drying process because I wanted to keep going with the layout. Oh, I actually added another layer of white acrylic paint on top. You saw me do that quickly. Just a few more splatters. So once that dried, after I dried it with a hair dryer, I attached the butterflies in place with a little glue dot over where I had drawn the stars. And I think I added a couple more here and there. And I still have some butterflies left over, which I'm keeping in that cute little pink jar within arm's reach so I can add them at a moment's notice. Or whenever I feel like adding a little butterfly because they're so cute, and I'm sure you could incorporate a butterfly onto almost any layout. Now if the strings are driving you bonkers, don't worry, I trimmed them mostly, but I did leave some a little long for that extra bit of whimsy. I chose this picture of my daughter Jane. She fell asleep on Chris's shoulder while he was reading, and she must have just been so tired because she never naps anymore. Underneath, I layered a torn journaling spot and a flower die cut. And then in between the butterflies, still on the stitched lines, I added sequins to match. So there's blue sequins, yellow sequins, pinks, and kind of peach colored. And those darker pink sequins I didn't like, so you'll see me remove them. I don't know, they just didn't match the pink that was going on in the layout. And I also used clear sequins here and there for more texture and shimmer and shine. I attached the sequins in place with more glue dots, and then to work on the title, I fussy cut this frame in half from that 2x2 paper pad, added a sticker that says Dream. I trimmed down this Keep Dreaming chipboard sticker and placed it on the open space of the photo on the bottom side. I tore the top left edge of the layout and I'm backing it with a piece of pink lined paper. And to do this, I just flipped it over, added adhesive right to the back, and then placed it so the edges weren't aligned, but I wanted more of the lines in it, not that the empty pink spots. I wanted the lines. And then trimmed off the excess, and that is where I'm going to write my journaling, first with a pencil and then with a black pen. And that is the finished layout. I hope you are inspired to give one of these techniques a try, and be sure to check out the Mood Board Girls Instagram hop, and I will see you again soon. Thanks so much for joining me.